Mr. Mangudya, thank you so much for your time. I want to talk a bit about the role of central banks in collaborating with the Afreximbank to really drive this agenda of intra-Africa trade. Now, clearly, when it comes to financial services, the central banks play a very important role. But the platforms for payments, for example, that the Afreximbank has created, like PAPSS, it's been enabled as well because of this collaboration with the central banks. So as we begin to take stock of how far the Afreximbank has gone, do you want to just comment on your perspective on how that collaboration has worked?
Yeah, sure. And thank you for the invitation to come and discuss with you on these issues. Let me start by saying from the onset that Afreximbank has done a lot for central banks in Africa. You are talking about decades of resilience. We can put some meat to that decade of resilience. What resilience are we talking about? The Afreximbank has been able to put in place payment mechanisms which are used by central banks and the commercial banks for purposes of increasing African trade. For you to increase African trade, to expand African trade, you need the payment platform. And the platform which was put in place, which called the PAPSS, which the Western African countries are using, the South African countries are now starting using it. That system is a good system that enhances the payment of trade among ourselves. So what is trade? Trade is the exchange of two people or two countries. And when that trade, you need to ensure that it's efficiently settled. That's why the Pan-African payment settlement system was put in place. All what the Afreximbank is doing is to walk the talk of ensuring that not only are they advancing funding, they are also advancing funding and to ensure that the trade within Africa and between two African countries is also expanded. Therefore, you need a payment instrument. So they've done very well, Afreximbank, in promoting central banks in Africa, providing them facilities. Most of the central banks in Africa, they've got facilities in Afreximbank. They're under Class A shareholders. Class B shareholders are your commercial banks in Africa. Class C are financial institutions outside Africa. For the Class D, which is the depository receipts HR registered in Mauritius Stock Exchange. So for that basis, you find that the Class A, which are central banks and governments, they've all used one way or the other funds from Afreximbank. And that is very serious because if you look at most countries, where at the time they will not get financed from the likes of IMF, especially in the case of Zimbabwe, from World Bank and the FDB, Afreximbank has been that brick, the cornerstone, which has been put there for us to hide in and that's to help us. So it has been very good for Africa, and we believe that with that resilience, it will continue because that is the only way to go. We are by ourselves as Africans. We do not wish anyone else to help us. Donations, they're not sustainable. What is sustainable is to change the way we do business. And therefore, Afreximbank has been able to do so. They've done their part. More things to be done, but we are on the right track. We need to take the course.
You mentioned earlier facilities that Afreximbank makes available to some of these central banks. And as we try to continue to drive position Africa to be more independent, I wanted to hear your perspective on how Afreximbank is supportive of that in terms of financial independence.
Yeah. Afreximbank has been pushing that agenda. When they go and get money from, raise money from the bonds market, they're taking money from the bond market outside Europe and others, put it into Africa. So at the end of the day, become financially independent. We can do on your work, being helped by an African institution. We belong to the African region, and therefore, yes, it's been helping. The Afreximbank, they are all their constituents. The constituents of Afreximbank is Africa, and they can't lend outside Africa by the charter of the bank. So they only lend to African institutions. If they are in dire stress, The purpose of Afreximbank is to find appropriate instruments, de-risking, looking for guarantees, for political risk guarantees, so as to reduce the riskiness of investments in Africa. So by so doing, it means Afreximbank is walking in the talk of emancipating Africa from this dangerous geopolitical environment. They've done that, and we wish them well. More so when Orama is reaching his retirement from the bank. We know that he's retiring but not tired. He needs to continue to work for Africa in one way or the other. Either he's a consultant, providing advisory to us, or one way or the other in the bank. So we want to thank Afreximbank. They've been doing a fantastic job.
Right. The Afreximbank obviously will always be associated with trade finance.
Yeah.
But looking into the future of the bank as we, look back at its history, what more do you think the Afreximbank will be doing in terms of the role it will play in driving beyond intra-Africa trade, but the industrialization of Africa?
This is a very good question. When I look at the Afreximbank, it's also associated with trade finance, transforming trade finance in Africa. But you know what? That is the selling point. That's the center. That's the hub. From that hub, we've got the spokes. What are the spokes? The center is trade finance in Africa. But then what do you need to trade finance? You don't need the trade center. What do you need? We need further investments. What do you need? We need PAPSS for settlement. What do you need? We need investments. So all those entities or all those activities have been centered at the center of trade finance. You cannot do trade finance without payment system, gateway system. Can't do trade finance without a value addition. So you are very right. This promotion of value addition in Africa, that is very critical. So we can trade more. The idea is to increase regional and African trade. In the African trade, at 10 or so, below 20%. That's pathetic. It needs to be improved. How do you improve it? By ensuring that we produce in Africa, and therefore Afreximbank become a catalyst, providing the funding facilities that are required to move from the hub with the spoke to the hub. That's where I look at it.
Certainly come a long way, and it's good to know that you've been part of that history as well. Thank you for speaking to us.
Wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you.